You asked, and I'm here to answer. Let's rank every rare in Avatar by the expected demand I see for it going forward. Remember, the cards that do well in this list will be in high demand across Magic, not just in your commander deck. And if you haven't seen my original Mythic rankings, check it out and consider subscribing. We have 61 cards to cover, so in the interest of not farming your time and keeping my sanity, I'll keep things very brisk and really only yap about the chase rares of the set and why. It also goes without saying that a chase rare won't be as expensive as a chase mythic, but use this list as a good scale to gauge where you would expect to pay in regarding to a specific rare. Let's take it from the top with Aang at the Crossroads, a Bant commander and the main way to integrate earthbending into blue. This matters because earthbending involves +1/+1 counters and land creatures, so you can run old existing Simic cards that support both these archetypes. Beyond being a commander, it goes nicely with Blink and fittingly Airbender cards to really abuse that ETB. But with 5 mana and 3 colors, there won't be many decks that want this. Not really high enough power to see play beyond Standard and Commander in my opinion. Aang, Swift Savior, would be the first chase rare, if it wasn't 2 colors. This limits its availability to decks, particularly in Commander, where many more decks could play this if it was monocolored. Having said that, for a rare, this card will be very sought after, for its front side being an incredibly flexible offensive and defensive tool that can be used to deny a spell for a turn, protect a permanent, or just allow you to replay something for a powerful enters the battlefield trigger. The flip side for this card is cute if you have nothing better to do with your mana, but as a flying 2/3 with flash, this card can assist so many decks with their game plan or hinder your opponents. 10 out of 10 rare, and easily the best Aang, only limited by what decks can access it. Aang's Iceberg is another 3-color Banishing Light style enchantment. This one with a few upsides. Flash being the biggest one, and a way as well to scry and remove it in response to it being taken out. Commander has plenty of these cards already, and honestly, Standard probably won't drive it up. Bulk rare, sadly. Abandoned Air Temple is a land with an upside, especially good in token decks that can run enough basics to have it come in untapped, so likely no more than 3 colors. The floor for lands to be in demand is very low, and this offers permanent 1/1 counters to a powerful and popular archetype. Big hit if you get this. Agna Kala is the blue land of this cycle. Effect is a bit more narrow, will mainly have a home in Is It Discard decks as a way to trigger. Cute in slow decks with Monument to Endurance. Being a land with upside though, will give it minor value. Airbender Ascension. This is one of the 4 cards that asks you to do a thing 4 times to get a benefit. This one is a free blink at the end of your turns. It has the flexibility to also airbend one of your things or an opponent's if they are threatening you, and the quest reward is pretty easy to get and very powerful. Will be great in any white base, self-bounce, and blink deck, which are actually getting more and more popular. Expect this one to be pretty sought after long term as a free extra blink on your turn. Avatar Destiny is a big, exciting pump spell that does require setup and also costs 4 mana. Too narrow, no evasion unfortunately. Although it returns itself, it may also end up milling you out if you keep using it. No thanks. Avatar's Wrath. Day of Judgment for people with big brains. Keep your main creature alive, lets you replay others while stopping your opponents for a turn. Obscenely powerful in the right deck, and fairly costed for it. I think it will be very sought after by a certain crowd of players who love these kind of complex cards. Azula, Cunning Usurper. Grixis commander, thanks to that firebending ability. It looks to me like a new theft commander, and in the right colors to do so as well. Ultimately though, this does make her pretty niche, and in 3 colors, don't expect her to be in high demand. Could be a really great budget commander though. Ba Sing Se, where there are no wars and no way this isn't in high demand. Earthbending is a powerful mechanic, and this is a way to generate creatures in a pinch at the cost of swapping this for one of the forests in your deck. The land comes in with counters, in which green happens to love so much, so expect this land to be very sought after. Beifong's Bounty Hunters is at worst a 4/4 that makes another 4/4 when it dies. Won't be very exciting to most players, being 2 colors, and being 2 colors keeps it out of a good chunk of the green commander decks that might want this. Very standard playable though, so I expect it will carry some value. Boiling Rock Rider is ally support in Rakdos. This makes it unfortunately very narrow, and will really only see play if allies can go 5 colors. It is an outlaw though, so it may see some interest in decks that commit crime or Olivia Opulent Outlaw, but it's still very narrow, so will almost certainly be bulk priced. Day of the Black Sun is a child of Dress Down and 0 Point Ballad, will be a more effective sweeper with the potential to be one-sided too. The mana cost to cast this will get high in some cases, and considering Toxic Deluge also beats Indestructible, this really only is better for denying death triggers. There are more sweepers in black than there used to be, and more often than not, I see a card like this really just being an overpriced version of that. In a competitive space, this is going to be bulk. Diligent Zookeeper, a 4-mana card designed to work with all the hybrid animals in this set. I wouldn't even run this if it gave all non-humans +2/+2, honestly. Not many homes for this, I'm afraid. Earthbender Ascension, a new 3-mana ramp spell, makes a creature with counters on it, gives counters to your creatures once complete just for playing lands. The land it finds also starts the quest, meaning 3 more lands needed. This card screams to me Commander good stuff, and will see play in any green counters deck, even if it doesn't care about the landfall as its ramp. That also keeps creating value. If your deck currently runs Cultivate, remove it for this. Will be good in Standard too, especially if it slows down. New casual commander staple in my opinion. Get it while it's cheap. Earthen Ally is cursed with being 5 colors in Commander, meaning its price is entirely driven by its play rate in Constructed. It's aggressively costed, and in my opinion, makes it standard worthy, at least especially alongside the next card we'll cover. May break into older formats, especially in the future if more allies are printed, will carry minor value as a possible 4 of in ally decks. The other piece of the ally package you'll see is Earth King's Lieutenant, an homage to Thalia's Lieutenant from a few years ago, working with allies instead of humans. All these ally cards rely on being in a deck, which relies on a critical mass of other cards to synergize with. This is easiest in a format where you can run multiple copies. Like Earthen Ally, this card's demand is entirely dependent on how strong it is in multiples, and as a rare dedicated to a specific creature type, it's probably not going to be too sought after in the long run. Elemental Teachings is the lesson version of a $20 old rare, Realms Uncharted, mostly carrying that value because it hasn't been reprinted in ages. But this card is 2 more mana and sorcery speed, so its playability is entirely driven by if you don't want to pay for a copy of Realms. Lesson Tag could matter in the future, and despite costing 5, the effect is still powerful, as the lands you get will be 2. You'll play this in a deck that doesn't care if the lands end up in the grave or battlefield. Relatively unique effect, so it will still hold minor value in my mind. Firebender Ascension is the strongest Ascension card. That's a bold statement already, considering where I've put the other 2 I've mentioned so far, so you can guess probably where this is going. Makes a fairly statted creature, so checks the does something immediately box, and the quest can be completed very fast in any deck that gets the board early. The payoff for this quest is far and away the most powerful, being both the first mono-colored and now also the cheapest way to get the ability to double attack triggers. Ishin is one of the most popular commanders for this effect, and now at last, you can run it in literally any deck in red. Slam dunk card with a popular and fan favorite effect will be the most widely sought after rare from the set even years from now. Firebending Student has the capacity to be one of the most explosive cards in the set. The vision here is that you pump this creature with buff spells, or really anything that synergizes with prowess, before swinging in and cashing in on the massive amounts of mana it makes, on an expensive ability or instant. Its best home in Commander will be in some kind of fling prowess deck that uses the extra mana it makes to pump it even higher on attack before flinging it for a one-shot. Beyond that, it has some constructed potential in any deck that really takes advantage of the free mana it can make, being probably the most efficient way to get lots of mana from firebending. If you aren't using the mana it makes, it becomes a strictly worse Ember Heart challenger. And since the student's applications are a little less universally powerful than card draw, I would say that this card settles to a bit below the challenger, which is to say it will still hold some demand. Firelord Azula and Zuko I'm covering together, since their play rate will come primarily as commanders of their own archetypes. Both cards ask you to build a deck around them, which really pushes them away from any format where they can't be in the command zone. Azula decks want to cantrip when they attack, which, given the nature of firebending, will mainly come from doubling 1 and 2 mana red spells that you fill your deck with. while Zuko fittingly is about playing things from exile, a mechanic which we've seen on Boros and Rakdos commanders, but never Mardu. Both cards offer unique playstyles and will be sought after in the initial rush of Avatar releases, before settling to minor demand. Firelord's Palace is the red land, and sadly the most niche of the 5. Like the other firebending cards I've mentioned, it really wants to only be in a deck that has something to do with the mana it makes. The thing that worries me about this card is the risk you take in activating it. Essentially, you're going to tap 3 mana for the payoff of 1 extra they can only use in combat. And because it's targeted, your opponent can just remove the creature you choose to give firebending to. It's a rare land, so it will have a home in decks, but not many sadly. Foggy Swamp Visions is next. Fans of reanimation effects will know it's already a pretty competitive space. This card's unique value is the ability to mass reanimate for as cheap as 3 mana, as long as you have creatures and artifacts to waterbend. The drawback of this card is that these creatures you reanimate will only stick around for the turn. But given that many of the best reanimation cards are ones that have powerful enter the battlefield triggers, this shouldn't be too much of a downside. The decks that will make best use of this will somehow set up their grave with good targets to return, while creating a board to cast Foggy Swamp Visions as cheaply as possible. Not conventional, so won't be in every Resurrect deck, but I expect it to be an all-star in the right decks and will carry some value. Great Divide Guide turns all your lands rainbow and your allies into dorks. Goes into ally decks and that's really it. Helps make 5-color ally decks not as jank, but won't be a market mover, sorry. Hakoda, Selfless Commander, is, stop me if you've heard this one before, an ally support card. Deal here is he offers protection and card draw to a dedicated ally deck in white. Will probably be in every ally deck going forward, but the protection ability is better done on cheaper creatures in white, so won't really see much play beyond that. Minor demand. Iroh, Grand Lotus. Sick card for a sick character. Of the 3-color legendaries I've covered so far, I think this one is the most likely to break into Constructed, with the intention of being able to play him and immediately cheat in an expensive lesson for 1. The catch is, there's not really a massive amount of really powerful lessons going around yet. But there's a set coming out next year exactly with them. So I'd expect to see plenty more in the future. This guy is going forward going to be the definitive lesson commander. And giving instants and sorceries flashback is also a really powerful ability. 6 mana does make it hard to replay him if he's removed as your commander, but because of the potential for him to be very swingy, especially if unanswered, I'd expect him to be actually quite sought after. Iroh, T-Master, however, is a fun card that sports a really unsupported effect. The theme of donating bad things to your opponent is a really cool one, but most of the things to donate are actually really in black, which ultimately makes this card way too hard to utilize in Commander. And Donate as a mechanic is still a little too cute to really see competitive play, unfortunately. Probably will be bulk. Next, we have Jasmine Dragon Tea Shop. At this point, I think I need a tier list just for ally cards. Are you playing allies? Here's a staple for you. Are allies going to be popular long-term enough for this to hold value? No. The token it makes is cute, but there's plenty of other lands, including in this exact set, that do that for cheaper. Katara is a 3-mana trigger doubler. She's only 3 mana, meaning she has a great shot of being a cheap enough, mana-wise, to see constructed play. And I expect she's one of the cornerstones of 1v1 decks that run allies. I also think she's a commander in her own right for the ally deck, and is honestly probably the best. Doubling triggers is a very popular mechanic in general, and Katara is also a beloved character. So this one is an easy, higher demand card for me. Katara, Water Tribe's Hope, contrary to what you might think, is not actually an ally card. It can certainly go in a deck with them, but this card is actually more of a generally good Azorius Go Wide card. The powerful part about her is the ability to boost your tiny little tokens into monstrous threats with her Waterbend ability the turn she comes in. Thanks to the token she also makes, she can at least turn them into 2/2s, since you can tap her and the ally she makes. I can see this card being a fantastic game ender in many decks, though 2 color hurts her somewhat. She's going next to her other rare printing in my mind. My Scornful Striker has all the makings of a sideboard all-star. The kind of card you bring in versus some deck, playing Spellslinger or even just spamming Mox Opal. Monocolor gives it great flexibility, and early game, it will be a great defender thanks to First Strike. I still rate Magebane Lizard over this for its ramping damage and 4 health, But if you want in red, Mai looks pretty great. In Commander, this is a Valgavoth staple, and really any aggressive deck that wants to close games faster. Turning mana rocks and ramp spells into pay-to-life shocks is fantastic, and Mai will be a great card even as the power of your Commander games gets higher. Momo, Friendly Flyer, I think is a really unassuming hit of the set. 1-drops that offer a lot always do well in Constructed, and I think the real value comes from Momo's ability to discount creatures. We're already seeing people use Momo on turn 2 to warp Quantum Riddler in for 1 mana before bringing it back with a blink spell. But beyond that, I think Momo is a powerful 1-drop in really any deck that cares about flyers. Birds, Thopters, even Angels all might want to take a look at this little guy. He's not flashy enough to be a haymaker, but I think he has the capacity to enable some real bullshit that I think long-term people will catch on to. Watch this little guy go up on the rise over the next few months. Obsessive Pursuit, pretty clear build around card. Gives you a clue token every turn, which may have some synergy with token payoffs. I like that it makes one the turn it comes in, unlike cards like Phyrexian Arena, which need you to wait. And the extra potential payoff for sacrificing creatures is interesting. Still, despite all this, it feels just too slow for an optimized Aristocrats sacrifice style deck, which generally don't care about giving a creature a big buff, when instead they can just win the game by looping a sacrifice. Lifelink feels like it was attached to this card in acknowledgement of this, because they recognized in testing possibly it was weak. And honestly, I still don't think that's enough to justify it in many decks. Ren and Shaw, sick card. The lesson requirement should be pretty easy to reach by the time you have the mana to cast this, and the payoff of 2/4/4 flyers that can pump themselves with their own firebending is a really nice payoff. The fact it also works with dragons, as well as lessons, is icing. And as we all know, dragons is one of the most popular creature types in Magic. Expect this to be in high demand for dragon and lesson enjoyers. Raven Eagle is the most constructed card of the set. The kind of card that doesn't really excite a commander player, but is intended to be this general role player that's powerful because it just does so much. Cheap cost, evasion that hates the graveyard, and can generate potential card draw while also dealing some incidental ping damage. Outstanding all-round card. Reminds me of a beefed up Graveyard Trespasser, as this card that doesn't look like it'll go in a specific deck, but is also so generally good, black decks can just run it. Slam dunk rare that no black deck will feel bad running. Also an outlaw somehow, if that's relevant. Realm of Ko makes unblockable tokens as a swamp replacement. Main synergy a card like this has is with cards that care about dealing combat damage, like the recently printed Elegy Acolyte. If you do just want to make tokens, cards like Fountain Port generally do a better job of this and can sacrifice themselves to draw cards too. But again, it's a rare land with upside, so it will be worth a little something down the road. Redirect Lightning though, what a card. This is Deflecting Swat light and arguably more flexible, since it's not commander reliant and can be cast for only 1. Competes directly with another uncommon powerhouse, Untimely Malfunction, which offers artifact destruction as well for 1 more mana. Not much more to say, one of the best protection spells in red, will be very popular and highly sought after. Sandbender Scavengers is a pretty cool Orzhov sacrifice card that enables some great strings of sacrificing. Out of the box, you can sack it and return an Infestation Sage, which you can sack again to get another creature to throw away. That's 3 triggers, which alone almost gets you all the way to flipping Sephiroth. The creature you can return can even get better if you have other cards you want to sacrifice prior as it scales. I see this card being a mainstay in Orzhov Sacrifice, a pretty popular commander archetype. And if it keeps getting support, it may even make its way into standard. Once again, 2 colors means other colors orientated around sacrifice like Rakdos will miss this, but still, I expect this card will be in good demand going forward. Secret Tunnel! More than one of you probably immediately thought of the song from the show. Unfortunately, most of the time, this is just a rogue's passage, unless you can animate it into a creature, where it can be an unblockable problem. We already have indestructible lands, so this isn't exactly game-breaking, but I guess it also has synergy with caves and land-type matters decks, so marginally above bulk as an upside of a very playable colorless land. Soccer, Bold Boomeranger, will see play mainly in decks that care about discard and artifacts. If he got bigger when artifacts entered rather than cast, I would be very high on him in some kind of is it pirate deck that makes treasures, but unfortunately I can't see him being better than a card like FOMO, which discards, can draw you a card if your hand is empty, and even gives an extra combat. 2 mana growing threats aren't really the top dogs anymore. Sokka's other printing, however, is pinned as a powerful, go-wide Spellslinger commander that's less concerned with playing lots of allies and more about casting bulk spells. Reminds me a lot of Narset Enlightened Exile, another powerful Prowess Tokens commander in Jeskai, and I think Sokka here will build fairly similarly. As a result, Sokka is one of the highest power ceiling commanders in this set in my opinion, and will be a card, no doubt, on quite a few players' radars. South Pole Voyager has a simple proposition. Play allies, draw cards. We've seen on Halea, Guide of Light, drawing cards from an effect like this is pretty easy to do, and this will see play especially with all the little 1 allies decks can make. Once again, allies are niche, and this card caters to that specific archetype, so it will probably not be in high demand. Spirit Water Revival is really only going to have a home in decks that can pay its waterbend cost consistently. These will generally be blue decks that create a lot of tokens, both artifacts or creatures. In those decks, it's a great way to refresh a hand after throwing down your cards. In many other colors, this would be a fantastic staple in token decks, but unfortunately, being in blue, there are already some really great card draw payoffs that scale with wide boards. And unlike Spirit Water Revival, they aren't one and done, they stick around. Sadly, despite the ceiling, this one's probably bulk. If you want a real powerhouse though, God bro, update available, fuck off. If you want a real token powerhouse though, Suki is definitely the one for you, for any go wide deck in white. Aside from being the name of my cat, she buffs the board while she's around and replaces fallen creatures. But the real kicker is the fact she works with any permanent being lost. That includes fetch lands, making her a very potent token generator, especially in decks able to sack a permanent every turn. Not just yours, but your opponent's. I like this card a lot, and it is very potent in a lot of decks, and I expect will be making its way in a lot of decks to come. The Earth King is a very well-statted 4-drop that can be paired alongside high-powered, low-cost creatures for some fantastic tempo-based ramp. I also really like this card in token decks, especially with the usual doublers. One other avenue he could also be amazing in is as a blink or bounce card, giving you a new bear every time you blink this. This has the potential to lead to some legitimately broken amounts of ramp if you manage to attack with your bear army. The trade-off to this is you will need to put a larger than a normal amount of basics in your deck, but this payoff I still think is really noteworthy. For that reason, I think he'll have some demand on him. Fire Nation Drill, fittingly, can destroy walls of Ba Sing Se. But beyond that, and having some kind of synergy maybe with Grease Fang, I just don't think there's enough support for black-based artifacts or vehicles yet. Bulk rare. The last Agni Kai is a fight spell in red, which we usually don't see much of anymore. Fight spells are generally towards the bottom in terms of single target removal, especially in a color like red with much more conventional removal. The saving grace of this card is meant to be the mana it could generate, emphasis on could, because many times this card will not get you that value you're looking for. It's that inconsistency that prevents me from seeing this getting out of bulk status. Lion Turtle. It's an expensive mana dork until you get 3 lessons in your grave. Its playability, unsurprisingly, is determined entirely by how fast you can do that, which means it's really only going to be in a lesson deck capable of milling itself quickly. I don't think there's enough real good lessons out there right now for Commander players to do that consistently. There's a chance in Standard, given the fact it's not Singleton, but I'm not really a believer yet. So, with too many hoops to jump through, this is bulk. The Mechanist is designed as some kind of payoff for all the artifact tokens in your deck. It can only turn 1 token into a creature each turn though, has terrible stats, and can't activate the turn it's played. Way too slow, way too weak, easily the worst rare of the set. I'm sorry if you got this. Unagi is going to be great in those Simic Serpent Leviathan decks. The card draw effect is great, but if you want this type of trick, run the much cheaper Fairy Mastermind. Probably won't be very popular. Tiger Seal is a new cat for blue, intended as an early game aggression piece for blue tempo decks. S-tier stats and keywords for a 1 mana, and with the drawback though, intended to limit its play rate, except to decks that can draw an extra card every turn. Most commonly, this will be through the many discard, then draw effects that exist, particularly in blue and red. Early balls of stats like this tend to be less powerful in Commander when there's 4 players and 40 life, but in Constructed, this card has some serious teeth. 1v1 players will be interested in playsets of this card for sure. Toph, Hard-Headed Teacher, is a powerful way to weaponize your lands with a bit of setup. Likely too slow for non-commander, but the lesson component isn't really mandatory. Instead, I would jam her into a Gruul deck that simply wants a free 1/1 every time you cast a spell. The effect of returning cards can be situationally useful too, but it's not really the selling point here. I think this has the makings of a strong, generally good creature in Gruul, especially with how powerful Earthbending is. So I would expect a little demand on a card like this. Toph, the first Metal Bender, is my pick for most popular commander of this set. Naya Artifacts is a very unique space, not to mention the unique Earthbending twist Toph puts on it. While likely requiring too much setup in Constructed, in Commander, however, I think Toph decks will be some of the most interesting and enticing for players to build around. As such, players are going to want her as their commander. Ty Lee, unfortunately, however, is too single target orientated for most commander decks. There are plenty of 1 and 2 drop creatures as well with prowess that the decks that would want to run prowess creatures will probably run instead. She also competes in standard, unfortunately, with the cheaper costed and much more reliable Flood Pit's Drowner, which ultimately means I can't really see her being particularly sought after. Wartime Protesters is the last Allies Matter card and serves as a haste enabler for these decks, should they be in red. Commander players will know there are already plenty of ways to give any creature haste in red, so I don't exactly see them needing a clunky 4/4 to do it. If allies have a lasting impact on standard, however, where the card pool is much smaller, she does have a chance to see play, but I really just can't see people clamoring for this card. Waterbender Ascension is the last of the 4 we're going to cover, and unlike its peers, is unfortunately the runt of the litter here. It is also cursed with being the only Ascension to not immediately do something when it enters. While its payoff is powerful, it surprisingly also has the hardest time to complete the quest, especially since it will come down early when you likely don't have much of a board. Not to mention, your opponent will also just be able to block to deny you completing the quest. Blue has way better card engines, as I mentioned, so I don't expect this to be getting out of bulk tier. UA. UA lets you cheat a massive spell into play if you can pay the 5 mana cost and untap with it. You might see where I'm going with this. This is far too slow for Constructed and puts a massive kick me sign on your back if you play it in Commander. If you can protect it, however, until your next turn and drop an Omni, you'll probably win, but it won't be easy, and the setup and protection to get there really stops this card from being in hot demand. Al the Moonslayer is super scary and super cool. He'll more often than not be going in mono red decks, built to avoid his drawback. Many players are already freaking out about his ability to turn lands into mountains like Blood Moon, but considering there are already multiple ways to do this without paying 7 mana, I'm more interested in his ability to be a 2 mana resource denial. Forcing opponents' lands to empty tapped is a very potent ability, especially in an aggro deck. And at 2 mana, he comes in as cheap as any of the usual hate bear effects you might see. His unique and powerful ability will keep him relevant and definitely in demand. Finally, Zuko is a high-risk, high-reward 2-drop that I think has a real home in decks that want to go fast and end the game quick. He's a powerful outlaw with 3 fantastic abilities. The thing that holds him back will be the 2 HP lost per turn, but in Constructed, he is likely not to stick around for long enough to really suffer from this. Given the fact he offers so much value, the opponent will need to remove him immediately. His abilities, card draw, ramp, and a powerful body, all are great, and therefore he will carry minor value. That's it. That's all 61 cards. My head hurts, if I'm being honest. That's everything. Thank you as always for watching these. I love to do them. If there's more videos like this you would like to see, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I'll see everyone in the next one, and probably for Lorwyn as well as some other stuff. For the rest of the year, I'm going to be doing a few little end-of-year wrap-ups of the year that was for Magic, so stick around, subscribe if you want to see more of those. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.